A Cut Above, a Karnie Cleaver Mystery Book 1 by Judi Lynn, narrated by Laura Jennings. Chapter 1. Karnie carried a tray of sirloin steaks to the meat counter and began loading them into the display case, Dad's special for Friday and Saturday. With the temperatures in the low 80s, customers were in the mood to grill. When she straightened from her task, she saw Mrs. Sprunger enter the butcher shop. Her wisps of white hair were sticking out at odd angles, her frail body hunched over her walker. She passed the freezer case in the front of the store that held scallops, shrimp, whole ducks, and other specialty items, to slowly make her way to Karnie. Hands on her hips, Karnie scowled at her. The old woman had to be at least 80, probably more. How much more she wouldn't divulge. "You didn't get enough sleep again last night, did you? You're not as put together as usual." Mrs. Sprunger tightened her grip on her walker. "Don't you start with me, girl. I ran out of ice cream and didn't have my bedtime snack. I was a little hungry without it, kept waking up." "That's what you said yesterday." Karnie raised an eyebrow in disapproval. Shaking an arthritic finger at her, Mrs. S. warned, "You'd better mind your manners, Missy. There's a new meat shop opening across town, have you heard? They're probably nice to their customers." "But do they buy a pint of cherry cordial to keep in the freezer for them?" The old lady's blue eyes widened. "You did that for me?" "I didn't buy it for Chuck." Her brother had been warned not to get into it. Mrs. Sprunger came to a Cut Above every day to buy something for supper. 1 pork chop, 1 small steak, a chicken breast, sometimes only a potato and enough produce to make a salad. But the joy of her life was cherry cordial ice cream. "You're such a sweet girl and take such good care of me." "Someone has to." Karnie went to get the treat. A year ago, the old lady's grandson had bought her an air fryer, and she'd gotten more adventurous with her evening meals. Sometimes she even cooked fresh broccoli in it. She drove to their shop every day, taking the back way, too nervous to drive to the grocery store on the main road. As Karnie handed her the bag, Jethro Throm walked into the shop, the gentle giant who owned the plumbing shop down the street, along with his brother. He could see the ice cream through the thin bag.
"Cherry cordial? If you buy some for me, I like Rocky Road."
When Karnie rolled her eyes, he turned to Mrs. Sprunger.
"What you having for supper tonight?"
Mrs. S. wrinkled her nose at the day's special. "I only eat red meat once in a while." She turned to Karnie. "What do you recommend that's cheap and easy to make?" Karnie had been expecting the question. Mrs. Sprunger knew Karnie loved to cook and often asked for suggestions for meals. Chuck put chicken thighs on sale, too, the skin-on bone-in ones. I like to pan-fry those, skin side down first, until the skin's browned and crispy. Then turn them and crack a lid on the pan to cook the insides. I make a pan gravy with the drippings. "What do you serve with them?" "For you, I was thinking about sautéing fresh spinach on the side. I know you like that." "Perfect. I'll take 1 chicken thigh." Karnie fumbled under her white apron to dig in her jeans pocket. She took out a 3x5 card and handed it to Mrs. Sprunger. "I wrote down the instructions for you in case you asked." "You're such a dear." On the back of the card, Karnie had written a recipe for sautéed spinach, too. Patiently waiting his turn, Jethro asked,
"Did you hear about the new shop on the north side of town? Word is the owner hired that nice boy you trained, Sam."
Dad left his station at the deli counter and came to hear,
"The woman signed on 2 of the old guys I started out with. Both of them are working part-time. Did Sam get a full-time job?" "That's the scoop. Hope he lasts, though. My friend on the bowling league lives close to the owner. Said she's already fired half the people she hired. Said she's not easy to deal with."
And Ada's daughter, Mandy, quit stocking shelves to listen. She'd had a crush on Sam when he'd worked with them. "Sam will do okay. He's so easygoing. He won't let her get to him." Mrs. Sprunger leaned on her walker to join the huddle. Mom left her cash register to gossip along with them. "What have you heard about the shop?" Jethro hooked a thumb in the strap of his overalls.
"It's fancy. Aimed at people who spend lots of money."
The door opened and Woodrow Datlow walked inside. He took one look at them, all grouped together, and came to join them.
"What am I missing?"
Mandy said. "We're talking about the new shop that opened out north. Jethro said the owner hired our Sam to work for her."
Woodrow rubbed the gray stubble on his chin. "Poor boy. My daughter Trixie lives out north and went in to buy some steaks. Caught the owner yelling at him and threatening to fire him." "Sam?"
Dad's dark eyes sparked with temper.
"She won't get a better butcher than him."
Jethro nodded.
"You did a good job training him. He was a good kid."
Their powwow was interrupted when a tall woman with broad shoulders strode into the shop and stalked to the meat case. "Do any of you work here?" Karnie motioned Jethro back to the counter. "I'll finish getting what you wanted. What was it again?"
"A pound of bulk sausage. I'm making biscuits with sausage gravy tonight for supper."
The woman grimaced, unimpressed.
"That sounds good," Woodrow said. "I'll take a pound of that, too."
"You shouldn't eat sausage gravy," Karnie told him. "Too much cholesterol."
"I get to cheat once in a while."
He was ready to argue when the new customer tapped her foot impatiently and snapped, "This isn't a health clinic and you're not a doctor. Give the man his sausage, Karnie." Karnie stared. How did she know her name? She'd never seen her before. Woodrow turned to glare.
"Don't talk to Karnie like that."
"Oh, give it a break." She rolled her eyes. She was big-boned but not heavy. With her shoulders, she looked solid and formidable. Her dark brown hair fell past her chin in a straight line. With her blunt-cut bangs, her face had a boxy look. Karnie would guess she was in her late 40s, from tiny lines already forming at the edges of her eyes and above her lips. "I can't believe this shop has stayed in business this long the way you operate things."
"Who the hell are you?"
Dad demanded.
"How do you know about us?"
"I'm Donna Amick, and I just opened a shop on Lima Road. I hired Sam Lessman, and all he does is sing your praises. So do 2 old-timers who work for me part-time."
"You threatened to fire Sam."
Dad planted his feet, hands on hips. "For being so young, the kid's set in his ways. But I didn't come here to talk about him. I'm here because I've watched some of Karnie's cooking podcasts." Karnie recorded a half-hour show every Sunday about how to cook whatever meat she chose as a special that week. She frowned at Donna. Surely she knew how to cook. "I came to offer you a job," Donna told her. "I want you to run my meat counter. I can offer you higher wages than you're making here." Everyone in the shop grew quiet to listen. Karnie gave the woman a blank stare. "You realize this is a family-owned shop, don't you? That's why I came. I've heard how your parents drove away your oldest brother. He fled all the way to Florida to get away from them. I thought you might want to be free of them, too." "They didn't drive him away. Porter didn't want to stay in Indiana. That's why he left. I'm happy here. You'll have to find someone else. Think about it." The woman shoved a business card across the counter. "Maybe you'll come to your senses. I'll come back later with an offer." Karnie pushed the card back to her. "Not interested." Donna let it lie there, and when Karnie walked to the trash can and tossed the card inside, her blue eyes flicked with temper. "No problem. I have more." She turned on her heel and slammed out of the shop. Once she was gone, Mrs. Sprunger worried. "You wouldn't leave here, would you? Who'd help me decide what to have for supper?" Karnie snorted. "No worries, I'm not going anywhere." Satisfied with the answer, Mrs. Sprunger went to pay for her few items. So did Jethro and Woodrow. With no new customers, Karnie's mother left the register to join Karnie and her dad. She wrapped an arm around her husband's thick waist. "Can you believe that woman? She came here and insulted us in our own shop." Mandy snorted. "Doubt she understands how nice it is to work with family." And Ada, Mandy, and Ada's son Kent worked here. Lips in a taut line, Karnie glanced at her father. His usual jovial mood had vanished. He hated talking about Porter, the oldest sibling in the family. When Porter let Dad know he was leaving the butcher shop, her parents had reeled from the blow. Donna must never have had kids, or she'd know they sometimes want to strike out.